Alright, so I've done a bit of cleanup. As you can see here, I've moved some common style for the buttons up. Initially I was having the same styles here and here as we did. So I've just moved that up here so that I can spread that here and then add these extra properties. And I've also added some mocks just to replace the hard-coded values we have for our top categories and our featured products. And these mocks are also going to help us focus on building the user side before we actually go to the admin side. So if I show you the mocks, I've added some products. So if I expand, I've added about 10 products here. So basically what a product is going to need: a name, a description, price, rating, which is an object, so the rate, and then account, the slug, the main image, and then also a product ID. So this is all what we are going to be needing for a product. Some of the products also have galleries, and that's an optional property, so yeah, it should be fine. So what we are going to do in this video is we are going to add types so that we can also make some of these components generic by passing the props they require so that we can use it in other places as well. For now, we just have these hard-coded values inside the component, for example, like the rating, product card, and then our top categories as well. These are all hard-coded values we have here. So we are going to add types so that we can actually replace it with a mock data before we actually fetch an actual data into the app. So inside SRC, let me collapse some of these. So inside SRC we have our model.ts file here. The only type we have is the nav item. So we are going to add all the other types we need for our products and categories. So first of all, we are going to add a type for rating. I'm going to have a rate and then the count, and these are all going to be numbers. And then I'm going to have a type for our product as well, so export interface iProduct. Alright, so yeah, I've added all these. As I mentioned, the properties our product is going to need. The gallery is an optional array. So this one is going to be a category information, so I need to create an interface for the category as well. So our category is going to have just a name, an image, and then a slug, as well as the ID. And we are also going to create the interface for our featured items. Our featured items would have a top categories, which is going to be a list of categories, right? So our category list, we would have best deals, which is also going to be a list of products. So you'd see that in Sanity Studio, this will be references to a list of products, right? So the type for this is going to be product list. So iProduct list. And same for most selling products, trending products. These are all products. So these are the types we are going to need for now. When we set up our state, we are going to add other types as well later, but these are the types we need for our products and categories. So this means that we can start adding some types to our mocks so that we can actually have type definitions for them. So this is a list of categories. So I have category list, and it's because we have this double array brackets, square brackets here, right? So I need to get rid of one because we added a type. It's helped us catch the error we have here. So it was basically an array in an array. and I didn't see that. So that's why it's good to have type definitions. So I'll do the same thing for products. So this is going to be product list, and yeah, there are errors here as well. So what is wrong with our products? Yeah, basically, so these mocks I added, I did not add like the categories they belong to. So yes, I need to add them as well. So I'm going to say category. The category for this is going to be electronics. Open the category section here, and then just copy one of these. It's going to be electronics. Paste that here. So this is going to be a watch. Alright, so I've gone through and added the category for all these products. So now the mock file should be good. We have our mocks and we can now start using them. Alright, so let's start editing some of these components. I'm going to add an interface here, and it is going to be called everything. And here with the structure the rating, and now here is where we are going to do the count, rating dot count, and then the value is going to be rating dot rate. Perfect. So we've changed this now, so the component is beginning to flag here. It's actually expecting the props. So what we are going to do now is to add the type for this as well, so that we can pass an actual data here. I have an interface product card props, which is going to accept a product because it's just a product card, and the type is going to be product. And here I'm going to add a product card props, and now I can replace some of these hard-coded values with actual values. So image, product main image, SRC, Auth can be product.name. I'll replace the description here to product.description, and then here I am going to pass the rating to this. Rating can be product.rating, and that should be fine. Now here is where we have the price, so product.price, and here is the name, so we would say product its name. Save this, let it compile, and it should be good. But before we can check, let's actually fix some of these broken component as well. So here is going to be taking a featured product, so we need to make sure we are passing a list of products to this. We need to make sure we are passing a list of products to this component as well. So this is going to take products, product. It's going to be an array, so we need to pass that here as well, products. And here, instead of actually inside a swiper, instead of duplicating this here multiple times, I'm just going to do a map. So I would say products dot map, and products, and I'll basically return this. I need to make sure I am passing the key, which is going to be products.id, and I also need to make sure I am passing the product to this product card because it is now expecting the product. And now I can get rid of these. So when I save this component should be fine as well. We also need to fix it here though. That's where we are going to pass the actual products home page. This is the featured products, and this is for the deals, right? So we need to make sure we are passing products. For mocks, we're going to get it from featured items. So featured items, and then the best deals, right? Alright, so let me just put the name here. Featured items. Need to make sure I am importing that from featured, and I do dot best deals. So let me just add all these for now. So this is expecting the most selling product, and this is expecting the trending product. And then also we need to fix for our top categories. We'll create an interface, and we're going to call it top categories props. It's going to receive categories, and it's going to be a list of categories. Okay. Category list. Perfect. I can say categories. It's going to be the list, and I'll add a type here. So to categories. Instead of duplicating it multiple times, I'm going to do a map. So I'm going to say categories dot map category, and then I'm going to cut and paste this here. And I need to make sure I'm providing the key as well. Key, it is going to be category dot, as you see, ID here. So I can basically get rid of these. It's making our components also smaller. And for this one as well, I would create an interface for it. So interface, I paste the name, add props. It's going to accept a single category. It's going to be I category, just like this. And I am going to pass that as a prop. Instead of having these hard-coded values, I'm going to say this is rather going to be category dot name, and then the image is going to be category dot image, and here Auth is going to be category dot slug. Let's save this, and now this is expecting us to pass the category. So category should now be equal to category. So all our errors should go away in this component. I can literally close some of these components because we are basically not going to open them again, maybe at least for now. So let me close this, and I need to pass categories here. So featured items dot, and then we pass top categories. Alright, so I just need to make the category optional, and that's because I want to make my component generic. Some places I would have the category property passed, some places I won't have it passed. So yeah, I mean, I can just check for if it is defined or undefined wherever I want to use it. And if I do that, this should be resolved now, and I don't have to have any issues here also. And yeah, I've added a type here as well. Alright, so this is looking good now. I can close this, can close this, I can close this. So yeah, as you can see, this is the localhost one. I have my categories being filled, I have my product, and this is what we are going to fix next. You see, the name and the description for some of the product is very long, right? So we are going to fix that next. But yeah, we have actual products and categories being filled here, which is very cool. So to fix this issue, I'm going to create a helper function to just trim the longer descriptions and product names I have, right? I'm just going to use a substring to trim it. So I have this helpers.ts file here, and I'm going to put that here. So constant, and I want to export it as well so that I can import it wherever I want to use it. So export constant, and I'm going to call it get substring. Yeah, maybe it might not make a lot of sense, but yeah, you know what I mean. And this is going to return a string at the end of the day. It's going to be an arrow function, and what this is going to do is I'm going to pass a text to it. So it's going to accept a text, which is basically going to be a string, and I also want to pass a number I want to substring it by, right? So let's say substring end, and it's going to be a number. So for example, if I pass a text and I want it to substring from the beginning of the text up until the 30th character, I'll just pass 30 here. So what this is going to do is it is going to return text dot, and it's going to say if text dot length is greater than substring end. That is only when we want to do the substring, right? So if I pass 30 here, and then the text I am adding here is less than 30, it's not supposed to trim it. But if I pass 30 and the text I'm passing is more than 30, that's when it is going to do it. Right. So yeah, this is a condition to check that. And what I am going to do is I am going to say text dot, and I'm going to use substring method. It's all the time going to start from 0 and then say substring end. And I want to also add a dot if it does the substring. So I'm just going to use template string here, and then make sure I am putting this in the curly brace, and then after this I can do dot here. But if it is not more than the number I passed, just return the text like this. Alright, so this is going to be our little function to help us do that. So yeah, I'm going to now use this, and then I'll go to product card, and where I have the name, I can basically do get substring here. So I have to make sure I am importing this, and I am going to say it should do 20. So yes, let's import that from helpers. And for the description, I am going to do 30. That's a much smaller text, right? Alright, so if I save it, I should now see that yeah, most of the names of the product and descriptions that are longer has been trimmed, right? This is the next issue I want to solve. So you see some of our products, the dimension here, some of these are bigger than others. I'll come back to product card, and this is where I'm displaying the product image, right? So I'm going to use a box, which is basically a div from Chakra UI. This is going to be a self-closing element. I'm going to rather add the image as a background image for this one. Right. So first of all, I'm going to set a box size. If I specify a box size, for example 200 pixels, it's basically going to set the dimension of my div, the width and height, to 200 pixels. So no matter what you put inside the container, the size of it is going to be 200 pixels. So with this, I can now use the image as a background image and then make it be in the center of the container. All right. So I'm going to say bg, and I'm going to use template string because I'm using product.main image from here. I need to first of all specify the other image properties. So it's going to be in the center. It's going to be contain instead of cover because I want to show like all the image, and I want to say no repeat as well, and this is where I'm going to specify the URL, right? And the URL is going to be product.main image. And now I want to make sure that margin X is auto, so that it will center it, and I will also add some border radius around the image. So I'm going to say border radius should be large, and I'm going to get rid of this, and this is not imported yet, so I'm going to import that. So all the time the size of my image is going to be 200 pixels for the card. So I will save this, and yeah, the sizing issue should be fixed for my cards, and there you go. Alright, so yeah, all my images will be of same dimension. Just have 200 pixels width and height box, and then the image is going to be in the center. It's going to contain so that all the parts of the image is going to show. So yeah, let me actually fix the font size issue here. So the name, heading, so the name, instead of the size being medium, it's going to be small instead, and that should fix it. So let me wait for this to refresh, and yeah, there you go, we have it all fixed now. So this is now looking good, very good. Now that we've done all the hard work, let's build the other pages a bit faster. I think the other pages are going to be a bit faster to build. Alright, so we are going to build the products page next, and this is how the products page looks like on a finished website. So yeah, there's this section, banner section, talking about what the page is about, and list the products down here. We are going to add these products first because it's going to be the same as what we added on the home page. We are just going to reuse the card. Alright, so let me close some of these pages, collapse these. So inside app, I'm going to add a new folder, and it's going to be called products, and that's where we are going to navigate to /products. I have to add page.tsx inside here so that when we navigate to /products, it's going to open what is inside page.tsx. Going to generate this is going to be default export. Inside here, going to make this a fragment, and then here I would have a hero at the top, so hero, and here is where I'm going to have all the products displayed, right? So I'm going to say all products. When I open the features folder, I am going to create one for the products page. all products. So I'm now working on the products feature, and index.js file that is going to be there where I'm going to display all the products. And let me just say all products, and I need to make sure I am marking this use client. You notice why sometimes I prefer creating my component this way. So I can mark these as client components, but my actual page is going to be a server component. I could have actually added like all the Chakra components here, but this will require me to mark this as a client component, which I don't want. So I create a separate component for that, and then I can leave this as a server component, make my fetch, pass the data from the fetch to the client component, right? Yeah, so if I save this and I now import this from products, save it, I should see all products displaying. Go to products now. So I have my hero and all products displaying here. I'm going to first of all add a flex component here. I'm just going to display the products as flex items. So I'm going to say flex wrap. So it should wrap when it cannot contain it again. It cannot contain them again. It should wrap to the next line. And I'm going to say wrap. Going to give it a width just like we've been doing for all my parent elements. So base is going to be 100%, and on large devices it is going to be 90%. Then mx auto justify on base device is going to be center, so that it will be in the center, because on smaller devices it's likely going to be one card, and on large devices I just want to do space between. Later we are going to implement pagination. For now I'm going to just display all the products there, right? So let me copy the name, because I'm going to create an interface for this interface, and I'm going to pass products, import from model, product list, and then here I'm going to say products, and it is going to be all products props. And I need to make sure I import this component as well. So inside here, just going to say products.map, and I'm going to render product card. So I need to import that, and I pass the key and then the actual product. So save this. This should be fine. And here I need to make sure I am passing product, which is equal to the product from mux. So yeah, mux product, that's what I'm passing here. And save this. It's compiled successfully now. So if I come here and I refresh it, there you go. So we have our products being displayed here. Alright, so now let's add the hero section at the top. So we are going to create a hero component, because we would use the same component for the categories page and yeah, the other pages as well. We would go to components, create a folder, call it hero. Actually, let me make it a file, because it's going to be a very simple component. So let me make sure it's inside components. Let me make it a file, hero.tsx, and then I'm going to do rafc. Here I'm going to use a card from Chakra. Okay, so I think it now makes sense to create it as a folder, because I would have a bunch of styles, so I want to add that file as well. So I would say hero folder, move this one into that, and I'm going to create another file called style.ts. Here I'm going to do export hero card styles, which is basically going to be card props. So I need to make sure I have constant here so that I can import this card props, and I'm going to add direction to my card. So on base devices, it is going to be column, so that to be top and down. The description is going to be at the top, and the image is going to be at the bottom. So this is supposed to be an object. From medium devices, and on large devices, it is going to be row. I'm going to say align center, and I'm also going to do justify, because a card is basically a flex item. Center. I'm going to add an overflow just in case. Hidden. I'm going to add a variant. Variant, which is going to be an outline. I'm going to also add a width. It's basically going to be the responsive width we have for all our main containers. So we need to make sure margin X is going to be auto, and we would also add a bit of shadow. So shadow, small shadow. We would add some padding. It's going to be 2 rem, and let's also add some margin at the bottom. So margin bottom 2 rem. Let's copy this, come here, and then do dot, paste that. Make sure we import that from style. So inside the card, what are we going to have? We're going to have a box which is going to contain information, the text, the description, and we are also going to have another box which is going to contain our image. So here we have a heading. Basically it's going to contain heading, which we would pass to the hero. So we need to also create an interface for this. Alright, so this is going to be the interface for our hero component. So we would have the heading, description, we would also have the image URL, the image we want to display, and then we have button label and then button link. So if I show you the finished website for product, this is going to be the heading, this is going to be the description, this is going to be the image URL, and this is going to be our button, right? So we would have a button, and we would have a label, and the link. If I click on that button, where should it navigate to? So that's what we have here. So we need to pass the type. We need to make sure we are getting all these props. Heading. So this is where the heading is going to be. Let me import this from Chakra. and the size is going to be a bit bigger. So the size is going to be responsive, so on base devices it's going to be extra large, and on large devices it is going to be 2XL. Below that we would add a text for the description, import that, and in here we would say description pop, and the only style we would have is add a pattern Y, and it's going to be 1 rem. After this we would have to add a link which is going to navigate to a certain page, and the href is going to be btn link. This is going to be a next link, so let's import that. Now inside it we would add a button. The variant is going to be outline, and then inside the button is where the label is going to be. So btn label. Perfect. Import button as well. Alright, so let's go to the second box. We need to import this as well. We need to go to the second box, and here we are going to add an image from Chakra UI, src. It's going to be image URL Auth. I'll just use the heading, which is basically going to be the heading of the page. I am going to add object fit cover, and I would also add a max width. Let's just say 100%. Rounded should be equal to medium. So this is a bit longer. I'm going to I need to keep this and this, and I will copy this, move it to style, const hero image styles. So this is going to be our hero component. So when we come to page.tsx, here we are going to replace hero, import that, and we would need to pass a bunch of props to it. So first of all we need to pass the heading. I need to pass description. I need to pass image URL. I'm basically going to use one of these images I have. Now btn label is going to say view all categories. So when you're on the product page, I want to provide a button where you'd be able to click on it to view all product categories. So that's what this is going to do. And then btn link is basically going to go to /categories. So I will save this. Let me wait for this to refresh. And yeah, I need to mark it as a client component as well. I'll go to here, use client up here. Our hero is appearing, but our image is very big. So let me fix that as well. So if we open hero component again, so this is my image. So going to add some styles for this box that contains the image. First of all, I'm going to say give a bit of a margin around it, so 2 rems, and I am going to specify a width. going to use the responsive style. So base on smaller devices it should be 100%, but on large devices it should be 50%. Let me add the same thing for this box, and then I will basically need to add a margin just to add a bit of space, especially on smaller devices. So we save this, and yeah, I should have there you go. If we're checking on mobile device as well, alright, so notice that we don't have the menu to switch to products yet. So on smaller devices, let me just add that menu quickly so that I don't forget to fix it. So when I come here where I have my nav bar, I have the mobile nav bar, basically going to add another component, right? That's going to be the drawer, but I am going to call it nav menu. So let me just call it mobile nav menu .csx. This is basically going to contain a Chakra drawer. So let me just go to Chakra UI again, and there is a component called drawer. This one, if I click on it, draws here. This is what I want, so I'm going to copy this, going to replace that, and see constant export constant. It's going to be mobile nav menu. It's going to be an arrow function. Put an equal to here. I need to make sure I am importing this, add all missing imports. I'm going to put an N here for now. I'm having an issue because of the name of my component started with a lowercase, so yeah. Yeah, so this is fixed. If I save it and I use that, so this is my button to open. So basically I'll go here and I will replace that. It's supposed to be component. Let me quickly import that. If I save this and I check it before I modify it, so there is a big button here which is saying open. When I click on it, it's see that it opens the drawer, but it's opening it from the right side. So we are going to fix that. So first of all, if we go to mobile nav menu placement, we want it to be left. Button, we want to remove the color scheme from it, so that will be the default button, and we want to rather use an icon instead of open. So the icon I am using is called VSC list flat, and it is imported from React icons. That's the import. And if I save this now and check again, wait for this to refresh now, I have my hamburger icon on the button here. If I click on it, and now it shows the drawer from the left side. So where we have the drawer header, we are going to put our logo there. So we would say app logo. Let's import this, and inside the drawer body we are going to put our nav items here. and I'm going to remove the save, and instead of cancel I'm going to say close, and the on click is going to on close, which is going to trigger this function to close the drawer. Okay, so if I save this and I wait for this to compile and check my page again, if I check my page again, there you go. So see the hover effects as well. So now we can navigate to the product page just to see that, yeah, this is not showing in a column form, top and down, and the button is very close to the image. So let me add a bit of spacing, margin top, 1 rem here. Save this, check it again. She gives a margin top. There you go. This is looking good on mobile device as well. So let's continue to build the categories page. Alright, so when we go here and we go to categories, so we still have the hero here with a different image, different description, and a different button. We have our categories cards here, right? So let's build this page as well. So we go to all categories at the moment. It's going to give us 404 because we don't have the categories page. So I'd like to close these folders, collapse these, and then we would add a new page called categories, add a new file, page.tsx, rfc a, and I'm going to rename this to categories. Do the same thing for here. And I think I also forgot to rename the product page. I mean, it does not really matter, but just have to like a meaningful names for my pages. So this is going to be products page. Make sure I am using this, and whilst I'm here I'm just going to copy this hero because it's going to be the same thing I'm going to use for the categories. Use fragment, enter, going to paste this, and I am going to import it. The heading is going to be product categories, and then the description I'll just copy from the page. We've got all your favorite categories. If I save this, wait for this to refresh, and there you go, we have our categories. We have the heroes page on our categories here. So next we are going to add all our categories here. So we would use the same pattern for all products, but this time it's going to be all categories, and we are going to pass a list of categories, which for now it's going to be categories mock data. Categories mock data, and I need to create this component. So I'll go to features. Here I am going to add a new folder called categories, and inside here I'm going to add index.tsx, rfc to generate the, I'm going to say all the categories. It's going to have this interface, all categories props. Basically going to be a list of categories we are parsing. So categories, all categories props. And yeah, I'm going to use a grid Chakra, and I'm going to add template columns. So it is going to be responsive. So on base devices, how do I want the columns to be? I just want it to be one column, so it's going to be one category card on just one category card on a row. So I'll do repeat and then one. I just add one FR, and then on large devices I'm going to say repeat, and it's going to be 2 on FR. So let me add some gap as well. So the gap is going to be 20 pixels. Margin X is going to be auto. It's going to be a parent element, so I'm just going to add the responsive width. Just want to also add some padding at top and down, so let me add that padding to rem. Save this, and inside here I'm going to have the grid items. So let me create that as a separate component down here. So export. I don't need to export it because I'm only going to use it in this component, so I can just say constant. I want to make it as a link, so that when you click on it, it's going to take you to a single category and fetch all the products under those category. So I will wrap the card around the link, add a card, direction. I'm using a card because I want to use an image and then a text, so the name of the category and then the image of the category appearing on top, right, just like this. So the direction is going to be column this time, align, center, and add overflow. I want to add a variant, no comma, variant, outline, width is going to be 100%, same with height, 100%, and I will add some padding across 10 pixels. And you saw that hover effect, I will add that as well. So when I hover, the BG color should change to gray, 100, so light gray, and then the cursor should also be pointer. So file import card should be fine. So inside it I would have an image. This time I'm going to use a next image, and with this I need to specify width 200, and then height 200, src going to be category dot image. I also need to provide alt category dot name. And then inside the card body, that's where I'm going to show the name. It's going to be a heading. Import it inside here, category Okay. And the size, I want to change it based on device. So base is going to be small, and then LG is going to be medium. So this is going to be a next link, and then href is going to be slash categories, and then slash going to use category.id, going to open the category, a single category using the category ID. So I need to change these to template strings. I can now use the category card here. Yeah, I think I'm not returning this. I need to return this, and now this should stop complaining. I would move this into a style file, but for now, yeah, let me just leave it like this. All categories, import this now, save it, and I check this, wait for this to refresh, use client issue again. I always forget to do this. So now we are having this Next.js image URL issue because I'm using the next image, and it says invalid src prop, and it's basically pointing to the image I am passing. And normally when you see this kind of error, what you have to do is to grab the host name here, copy this, and then in your next.config.js file, like this one, we're going to add another property called images. It's going to be an object, and inside it we would have domains like this, which is a list, and we will paste the domain we copied. All the images you are using from different URLs, you need to paste the domains here, and this is basically used by Next.js for some image optimizations and stuff like that. So I am going to save this, and when I modify my next.config file, I need to make sure I restart my dev server. So just do npm run dev again, and that error should go away now. So it started. I'm going to refresh this again, and yes, we have our categories displayed here. Perfect. Of watches, bags, women's clothing, jewelry, electronics, right? And when we check that, if I try to navigate to categories now, it's under categories, and I check, and these are looking good. So you notice that I did not add the pattern on mobile devices, so it's very close to the edges now. There are no spaces around it. So I will go to all the categories here, margin auto pattern Y. So I'm also going to add pattern X to rem like this, and I'm going to save this and wait for this to refresh, and yeah, there you go. So we now have a decent amount of space around it. Alright, so because this and this is the same, I'll just do pattern and then remove this. Alright, so our categories page is done. Let's build our next page, which is the product details page. Alright, so we are going to build our product details page. So for example, if I go to products and I click on one of these products, so for example, if I click on this, takes me to the product details page. So this is the page where I have name of the product, description, there's rating, the price, quantity, add to cart, buy now, and then these as well, and a product image. Right? So let's create this page now. So you see that it goes to /product and then the slug of the product. So every product has a slug. So slug is basically a unique identifier for a product. So it's just the name of the product with dashes in between. So we will go to /product and then /slug. So this is basically going to be a dynamic page. So we would create a dynamic page in Next.js. So inside our products, we are going to create a dynamic page called slug. The way we create that page, we would create a folder and then put a square bracket around this and call it a slug. So this page, we are telling Next.js that we are making a dynamic page. Alright, so inside the one file we need is page.tsx. Let me rename this tsx, and then I'm going to generate the component. So I'm going to call it product details page. Product details. Save this. And here if I check, for example, test product, is going to show that page. It's supposed to be products and then slug of the product. So we have that page. And here we are also going to create a feature for this. I'll call the component product details. This is going to accept a product, which is basically a single product. So I'm going to say product and then just select the first item, which is a single product. Yeah, it's just using this as a placeholder. So let's create this page in features. So we already have products. I'll add one file here and call it product details.tsx. Generate this component, and in here I'm going to use a grid. I'm going to add templates columns, responsive template columns. So it's going to be one column on smaller devices and two columns on big devices, so that we would have it side by side like this, and on smaller devices we would have it up and down like this. And then I'm also going to add the width, the margin, and then the gap. So width, as we've been adding, margin X auto, pattern to rem, and then the gap is 20. So in here I'm going to add just two grid items. So grid item, import that, and I'm going to add patterns. It's going to be 1 rem. In the first grid item, you would have the image. I'm going to import this from Chakra and src is equal to product dot main image, and to make sure I am passing the product here, and I need to add the interface, import iProduct. Now I need to add an Auth. Let me also say MX Auto just to center it. Then in the second grid item, I'm going to have a heading and a text for the name and description respectively. Import these from Chakra UI. The next one is the rating. So I'm going to use the rating component and pass the rating property to it. And next is the price. So I'm going to use a text for this. So font weight is bold, font size is 2rem, and then I'm passing products.price, and then this is the currency. Now the next one is the quantity. I'm going to create a simple component which is going to contain the quantity. So inside component, I'm going to alright, so I copied these from Chakra UI component. If I show you, it's basically a number input, right? And you would use the use number input hook, and it gives you all these properties: default value, the min, the max value, the step, the precision, and you also have the increase, decrease, and then the input reference. So that's what I am using here. So with mine the step is going to be 1, default value 1, minimum 1, maximum value I set it to 20, and I also added disabled to false. These are basically the default values I am passing to this. I'm using the disabled on the button. This is basically going to disable at some point, so I'm adding this disabled prop to be able to use that in case I want to disable the button at some point. If I use the quantity component, I need to pass these props to it. And if I don't pass any props, because these are all optional properties, and if I don't pass any props to it, it is going to use the default values from here. So I'm going to save this. I'll come to product details again. That's basically what I'm going to add after the price, and I am going to import this. And for now, I'm not going to pass any props to this. It should use the default values. If you notice the finished website, after the price, there is a line here, one on top and one beneath the quantity. So there is a component called divider from Chakra. I can just use that. So if I put a divider here, and I'm just adding a margin at the top and down, I would import divider from Chakra UI. Copy and paste this one more time. Bring it after quantity. Here we have product details, but we've not imported it. So let's import this. And I need to add the use client. So I am going to add a use client here. And yeah, this is looking good at the moment. Alright, so we have the image, we have title, description, we have the stars showing the price, and then the quantity. So this is for increasing, this is for decreasing. We are also going to add these buttons, buy now and add to cart, and then these sections here. We already have the add to cart button created as a component, so it's a matter of adding this button as well. So after this, alright, so that's what I've added here. So there's buy now button. The variant is outline, BG color, primary, color white, border radius 50 pixels, size is small, width, give it a fixed width 160 pixels, margin right, and then also some hover effect. And then I've also added the add to cart button we created already here. and I've wrapped the buy now in a link, and this is going to take us to the checkout page /checkout. We actually don't have the checkout page yet. We would create that. This is going to route to /checkout, and then when you click on this, it's also going to add a product to cart, as we would implement a bit later. So let's save this. Let's check this out. There you go. We have our buttons here. And the last thing we want to add is this. It's a very simple component. It's actually not doing anything yet. So I'm going to add that as well. These are not going to be next links. These are going to be a link from Chakra UI, because they are not actually going to route to anywhere. So instead of having, I'm going to import this and say as Chakra link. Copy this and replace that with this. And that should solve our issue. If we save this, so basically this is a stack, top and down, so one box and then the other box, and this saying enter your postal code, free 30 days delivery returns, details, which is a link, and this one is also saying this is a link, free delivery. I'm missing Y here, free delivery, and this is a link. So if I save this and I check it, yeah, this is how it looks like. Alright, so we have our product details page. So there is a breadcrumb app here. If you check the finished app, there's breadcrumb. So we want to add that. So we would now build our breadcrumb component. So I'll go here and I will collapse some of these files. Go to components, and I am going to add a new file. I'm going to call it custom breadcrumb.tsx. Generate our component, and I'm going to create an interface for this. So the interface is going to be our custom breadcrumb props. It's going to take items, which is basically a breadcrumb item. This is a type I have to create in model. So I'm going to add export interface. It's going to have just a name and then a link. So a name and then a link. So a link is basically a URL where it should route to if you click on it. So it's similar to the nav item. So I will import this now, and this is optional because sometimes it's just going to be like an empty breadcrumb items. So I'll just set a default value here. This set items default value to empty array, so that if I don't pass anything, it's just going to be an empty array. So this is basically going to receive breadcrumb items, which is basically going to be a list of name link items, and that's what I'm going to use here. So first of all, I'm going to say items dot length. It is only going to show this if there are items, and I'm going to use breadcrumb from Chakra. That's why I call this custom breadcrumb. And inside it I'm going to have breadcrumb item, items dot map item, and that's what I'm going to render here. Sorry, this is supposed to be here, and here I need to pass a key. I will use the index. Key is going to be the index. And then inside the breadcrumb item, there's another element I have to use, which is called breadcrumb link. And I can pass an href to it. Href. I want to put a bit of condition here. If I check the finished app, here it's going to route to /product/categories women's clothing category. But this one, when I put a cursor on it, you see there is no link on it. I don't render the breadcrumb link. That's because this is just the name of the product here, and it's not going to route to anywhere. I'm going to put a condition to say if the item is the last item in the breadcrumb list, just show a breadcrumb item, don't show a link. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this for now, and instead I'm going to say if index is not actually items, the length -1, that is the last item. If it is not, then only when are you going to render this with the breadcrumb link, and then show item dot link, and then here just say item dot name. But if not that's the case, just show breadcrumb item with just a text, not a link, like this. And I would need to pass the key here as well, and I'm just going to show a text instead of a link. I'll just grade the color out a little bit. So I'm going to save this, and when I come to product details here, on top of the grid, I'm going to use custom breadcrumb, and this is going to set items, and I'm going to pass a list of items to this. Now first of all, I know I am on the product details page, so I want the breadcrumb to be /product/category, category name, and then / the name of the product. I'll create this constant items. It's going to be breadcrumb item, name, and link. So all the time we are going to have products, categories, and then based on the name and then based on the product which is coming, we are going to get the category the product belongs to and also the name of the product from that product. So I'm going to import this type here, and I'm going to say just pass everything in these items and then add this. So I would have a name, so it's going to come from product dot category, which might or might not exist, so I need to put in the optional chaining, and then dot name. And I also need to say link, and for the link I will use a template string. So this is going to route to categories / I am going to get a category ID, product.category.id. So this is complaining because this is possibly going to be undefined. So to fix this, I can just replace this with this, because I know in the product details, the product that is going to come is always going to have a category, so it's not going to be undefined. Yeah, so this is actually not recommended, especially if you are not sure that your property is going to be undefined or not. It is not recommended to use this, but in this case I am sure it is not going to be undefined, so I will use this just to avoid making this optional. So yeah, just take note that this is actually not recommended. It is likely to break your code. And I will copy the same thing for the name of the product itself. So this time I'm going to get it on the product.name for the breadcrumb, and it's also going to route to /products, and then the slag product.slag like this. And because this is for the breadcrumb, I want to also use a substring just to shorten the name, because we have very long name product names. So our substring, the helper function we created, it's called get substring, and the text is product.name. We want to get it up until the 20th character, and then we can save this and we should see it here. There you go. So this route into product categories, and then this is categories, and the category ID is there, and this does not route to anywhere, and we could see our substring also working. The only thing we have to do is to style our breadcrumb to add the spacing here. So I will go back to custom breadcrumb, and then for this breadcrumb I'm going to add some styles, and this is going to be the icon I want to use. By default it is slash. I want to change it to chevron. I will import this from Chakra icons. Import this, adding some spacing. Separator is the icon. The width, as we've always been doing, 100% on smaller devices, 90% on large devices. We have margin auto here, and then we also add a font size. So if I save this and I go and check, it should now look like that, and there you go. So our product details page is done. So I'm going to create one more page, which is the categories details page. So right now if I click on this, it's going to say could not be found. So I'm going to create this page. So if I go back here, close this one, going to close this as well, go to categories, and I am also going to create another dynamic page which is going to use the ID. So I am doing this just to show you different ways of creating different pages. I could have used the slag as well to do the same thing, but I wanted different varieties in how to create different pages. So this time I am using the ID, but it's very similar to when I did the slag. So I will use the square bracket, and then inside it I'm going to create page.tsx, and I'm going to generate a default exported component, and I am going to call this is going to be a single category page, so I'm going to call this category page. So on this page I'm going to add a hero. The hero accepts some heading, description. We need image URL, we will pass that a bit later. We need a button label as well as a button link. It is also going to show all products components, but this time we are going to pass some filtered products to it. So all products accepts a list of products, so we can use the all products component again, and this time we are not going to pass all the products, we are only going to pass all the products that are under a specified category, and we are going to use the ID of the product to fetch all the products that has the category with that category ID, right? So this is going to be products, and for now I am going to pass the products mocks we have just to have something to be displayed. And then basically in the end we are going to fetch the products that belong to one category. So basically all the products that are going to come are going to belong to one category, which means that we can get that category information from any one of the products and fill this with dot information. All right. So for now I am just going to put a placeholder there by doing products 0, that is using the first product, and then I'll just say dot category name, and I am going to replace this with this. Alright, if I save this and I go check here, I don't think we should have a 404 again. And yeah, we have this working, and I think we are not actually showing the image here, so let's fix that. This is supposed to be for description, not image URL, and the image URL is going to be image, and we will get rid of this and this. Then when we save it and go back, after it refreshes, it should show the correct category image, which is electronics. It is basically the first product in our products mock, and it is an electronic product, so that's why we are seeing it here. So that looks perfect. We can now route to a single category page, and it is going to show the name of the category, the description for the category, and then the image for the category. And this is also saying view all categories, so I can go back and view all my categories again. If we check the finished app here, for example, if I go to women's clothing, there is also a breadcrumb here, so we need to add that as well. I'm going to use my breadcrumb component here, and because I am using it in a server component, I have to go into custom breadcrumb and make sure I'm adding the use client here, and then now I can use it. And for this one, still going to have these items, so instead of putting them here, let me actually, I added them here, so I'm going to remove it from here and then put it in I'll just put it in helpers, and I'm going to call it default breadcrumb items. I need to make sure I am exporting this, and let me import breadcrumb item here. Should be able to import this and use it now. If I save this and I replace it with this, clear the spaces from here, and now I can import this from helpers. I'm going to do Shift Alt O to get rid of all unused imports. Save this, and I'll go back to categories page, and here I'm going to say items, and it's going to be a list dots. I'm also going to use the default breadcrumb items, and the only one I'm going to add is the name of the category I have clicked. So I add a name. It's going to use product 0 and then category. Save this. If I check this, I should see the breadcrumb appear here after it refreshes. And there you go, we have electronics. So this page is also done. So we're going to go ahead and add a global state using context API so that we can manage some state from the client side. Okay, so let me quickly show you what we are going to use our state to do in the finished website. So here we are going to use the state to store some wish list, right? For example, if I click on this, adds item to wish list here, and I can also remove an item from wish list. I can clear the items from wish list. And if I add it to cart, if I add an item to cart as well, click here, it's adding all these items to cart, and this is being stored in our state, which is synced with local storage, so we don't lose it. If we refresh, even if we refresh, we still don't lose it. It is still going to be there, as you can see here. So here, these are the items that are added to like our cart state, and we can also remove items. And with this one, the state is stored together with a count. So for example, this item, we only have one item in that. We only have one item for this stored. We only have one quantity for this item, so if I increase it, it is increasing the count for this item in the state. Alright, so we are going to be storing our products in our state together with their count as well. So it is based on the count, which will set the price for the item, and we are going to add the item. We are going to add the total amount down here based on the quantity of all the items we've added in our cart. And when we click on checkout as well, our checkout is also managed by our state. So this is going to add the items you want to purchase. Based on the items that are added, you can purchase it. And also, for example, if I click on one item and I want to buy only that item, as soon as I click buy, it is only going to add this item to my checkout, and that's what I'm going to pay for. So we are going to use our state to store wish list, cart, and then checkout items. These are the three things we are going to use our state to store, and we are going to sync them to local storage as well. So if I come here, I'm going to create a folder. I'll call it context, and inside here I'm going to create app context.tsx. And inside app context, I'm going to generate components like this. On top here, I am going to use create context instance to create my context. So if you know how to use context API in React, say export constant, I'm going to call it app context. This is eventually going to change to app context provider. we use the create context to initialize our context. Alright, and I'm going to give it a type, but I will just initialize it to null, and I'm going to say as anything because I'm going to give a type here. It will expect an actual value here. We can pass it here for now, and my type is going to be called iContext like this, and I'm going to create my type in model. So when I come down here, I'm going to say export interface iContext, and it is going to contain a state which is also going to come from iState like this. I've not created iState yet, so I need to create that as well. So I'll create that on top here. So iState interface, and I need to export that as well. Export interface iState, and as I mentioned, it is going to have the cut items. It's going to be a list. Let me replace it with this. I'm also going to store items for my wish list. Put this here for now, and then I am also going to store the checkout items. All the items I'm going to store here are basically products, but a product doesn't have a count. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create an interface for the items I am going to store in this list, and I am going to call it, so I'm going to say export interface item like this, and because it is going to contain all the properties in my product type, I am going to say extend iProduct like this. It's supposed to be extends iProduct. So when I do the extends iProduct, it means that it is going to copy all these over here. So item is going to contain all these properties, and the one property I want to add is the count, which is basically going to be a number. Right. So item and iProduct are similar, just that item has an extra property which is a count of the item, and a product is a product. So now I can add a proper type to these, cart wishlist, and then checkout. Yeah, so for now, this is what my context is going to contain, the state. So whilst we are adding like the actions we are going to be needing for our context, I'll be adding them here as well. For example, when you want to add an item, remove an item, that will all be added here very shortly. But for now, I'm going to save this, and I will now import this from model. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and add a type for my app context provider as well. So interface props, and the only thing this is going to contain is children, because we are going to wrap this around like all the components. We want them to have access to their context. So children, this is just going to be React node. So need to import that from React, and here I will pass that here. So children, add the type here as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, put that here, and say dot provider, and I'm going to pass children here. So there's a children that's coming from here, And here is where I pass a value. It is going to be an object, and one value we've added is the state, which I am going to create as well. So I'm going to use useState hook to manage my state. So constant, let me just generate that useState. It's going to be state, and I would have set state, and I will import it from React, and this is going to be my initial state, which I have to create up here. So I'm going to say initial state I state. So we know that I state is, if I import that first, right, contains cat wishlist and then checkout. So cat is going to be an empty array from the start. My wishlist, we didn't have any items from the start as well, and then my checkout, we didn't also have any items as well, and that is what is passed here. So by default they are all not going to have any items, it's going to be empty. And I'm going to be adding a couple of functions here. So for example, constant add item, like this, and this is going to make sure it adds items to the state, right? And with adding items to the state, it could be we are adding an item to cart, or we are adding an item to wishlist or checkout. And I don't want to be creating a different methods for these, so I am going to add these as keys so that I can use just one add item function to add items to any of these. So let me show you what I'm going to do. So if I go to model one more time, and up here I can create a type, export type, and I'm going to call it item key. They're going to match the key for our state properties. All right, so we have cart, we have wishlist, and we also have checkout. So this way, when we type it this way and we use item key, it is going to know that it is either of these ones. It's going to be either of these ones and nothing else. Because if we add something which is not part of these union strings, it is going to flag that it does not exist in our state. It is not a property in our state. So this way we are safe that all the time we are going to add to either of these properties in our state. We have item key that we can use. We would use that later. And I am also going to add something like remove item, which is also going to remove an item from any of these states. Let me see what is wrong here. This is saying expected 0 type arguments, but I got 1. Oh yes, so this create context, I am not importing it from the right place. It is supposed to be imported from React. So let me import create context from React instead, and this should go away. Let's look at the other functions we are also going to need. So we are going to need increase count. So this is going to increase the count in case we are clicking on the plus, and it also means we are going to need a decrease count in case we are clicking on the minus to reduce the quantity of the item we've added to either cart, wishlist, or checkout. So this is going to be decrease count, and the last one we are going to need is reset items. Reset items, and this is going to reset the items in case we click on clear cart items or clear wishlist items. Alright, so we are going to implement all these functions, and if we start with this one, basically we know that our states, which we need to type it. For example, it is going to be I states. Our states is going to contain cart, wishlist, and checkout items. So for example, if we want to add an item to cart, this is how we are going to do it. So we are going to use set state like this, and we will pass a callback function. Alright, and the callback function, this is going to contain previous state, and in here we are going to return the object back. So the object is going to contain everything in our previous state. So the one item we want to modify is the cart, and with the cart we want to make sure we are doing ... previous state .cart to return all the other items, and then we would add the other object, which is going to be the new item we want to add, which is basically going to be a new product. So that product is going to be passed to the function, which is going to be I product, and that I will replace because it's going to be an object. So if I import this as well from model, you see that I am going to have an issue here because this is from our state, this is expecting I item, but we are passing I product, which means that we need to pass the count. That is the extra property for the I item as well. So we need to pass the count. So here we are going to get a count from the quantity component. So we would say count, and it is going to be a number, but we are going to make it optional because sometimes we don't want to, if it is just one item, we don't want to pass that. We want this one to just add it by default. So what we are going to do is I'll put an object here. I'll spread everything on the product, and the count is going to be count, which is what we are going to pass here. And if we don't pass anything for the count, it should add 1 as a count. Alright, so for example, if we are adding one item to the state and we don't pass the count, you can pass the count 1, it's still going to use 1. But if we don't pass the count, then it's going to add it as 1 because we would have at least one item in our state. This is how we are going to add a new item to our cart. So basically, we will keep the wish list and checkout items, and then we will modify the cart by keeping all the items there initially, and then adding a new item to it. Right, so how do we make this generic for all these, so that if we are adding to a wish list, it will be able to know it is coming from, it is going to add it to wish list. If we are adding to checkout, it's going to add it to checkout. And the way we are going to do it is, first of all, this add item is going to accept a key, which is going to be item key, like this. So item key is one of these, and here instead of doing cart, we would now replace that with key, and when I hover over this, it knows it is an item key, and an item key is either cart, wishlist, or checkout. And we will do the same thing for here as well. So this, instead of doing this, we would replace that with key. And now this can add item based on the key we pass here. This can add item to any of these. And that is the approach we are going to use for all the others. If we want to remove an item, or if we want to increase the count or decrease the count of any of our cart, wish list, or checkout items. We have add item. We would implement remove item, and first of all I need to pass the key as well. This is going to be item key, and then we also need to pass the ID of the item it is going to remove. So I'll call that product ID, which is going to be a string. And here I'm also going to do set state, pass previous state, and then I am going to dot previous state. And which key do we want to remove an item from? We pass that here, and I'm going to say previous state, and then we pass the key, and this time we are going to do a filter. Alright, so these are all arrays, so we do a filter and then we remove the item we are trying to remove from the state. So we do a filter, and filter is going to return a new set of arrays, so we don't need to spread it again. Filter item, and then we are going to say if item dot id is not equal to product id that we pass, then it should remove that. It should be 2. And that is all for our remove item function. It's going to remove an item from this state. I will show you how we would make these available for components that want to use it. We would pass add item to our context like this. We would pass remove item to our context. This is flagging because in our context, as we set it up here, we only have the state as the property, right? So we are going to add all the other functions we are going to pass to our context as well. For now, we have add item and remove item, and this is a signature. It accepts a key, product, and then a count, which is optional. So this is how we are going to type it. We are going to add increase count, decrease count. This is going to accept the key and then the product ID. Same for this. It's just going to use the ID to increase the count. And then reset items is also going to accept just the key. So once it knows the key, it is just going to set it to an empty array. So we don't need any product or product ID. We just need to know the key for the state we want to reset. Now we have the error gone, and this is now flagging because we've not added the other 3 it is expecting. Increase count, decrease count, and then reset items. And we need to make sure that the signature for these are also correct. So this is going to accept a key, which is item key. This and this is going to accept the same parameters as the remove item one. So let me just pass it for this and this. And now we should be good with our context provider. So let's also see how we are going to increase and decrease the items, right? We're still going to do set state, but before that, we're going to create a constant and then say items. Everything in state, we don't want to mutate the state, so we're just going to say spread everything in state dot key. So everything in cat, wishlist, checkout. So we spread everything here, and this is now going to be item. We are going to say constant index, and we are going to say items dot find index, and the cover function pass an item, find an item where item dot id is equal to product ID, this one. And here we do if index is not equal to -1, then we are going to set a state. We're going to use these items. So items, we pass the index, and then we say dot count plus equal to 1 because this is increasing. We bring the set state here, previous state, spread everything here, and then the modified one is going to be key, and the modified items is going to be this new one. So we find the index of the product we want to increase, we check if it is there, we increase it here, and then we update the state. We are going to do the same thing for decrease items as well, and this time it is decreased, so we want to make sure we decrease it and set the state. Before we do this, we have to check if the count is greater than 1, because if it is just 1, we don't want to decrease it to 0 unless we are clicking on remove item, then it's going to remove it. So here I can put another if here to just say if items index is greater than 1, items index dot count. So we want to check if the count is greater than 1, and then we will decrease the count. If not, we are not going to decrease the count. It's going to be like this. So with this, what we can do is we can remove this, bring it here, and just say end. So it's going to remove it if the index is there and the item state is greater than 1, and we can get rid of this if. Save it. Should format this. Alright, so our reset is going to be very simple. Here we are going to have set state again. I would have previous state and previous state, and then the only thing we are going to reset is whatever key we pass, and we will set it to an empty array. We have our implementations here. We've added all the implementations without testing. So yeah, I think it's time to test if all these are working properly actually. Alright, so first of all, we will go to app, we'll go to our layout, and this is where we are going to wrap all our components in our context. So here we would do app context provider and put a closing one down here. We would have to make sure we import that from our app context. Import this, and now all our pages, including their children components, have access to our context. To test that this is working, I am going to use the add to cart button to just test for this before I create my cart and wishlist component. So inside components here, I have add to cart button, and I can use that to test. So to use the context, we use the use context hook. Use context hook from React, generate that and import that from React, and we have to make sure we are passing our context, which is called app context. And because we have a type, it is going to recognize the properties that are on the context. So for example, if I do add, say it knows add item. If I do remove, it knows remove item. If I do reset, it knows reset items. And if I do, but again, increase or decrease, it knows them, right? So let me add increase, decrease. That's because I just want to test all my functions to see they are working correctly. I'm going to add an on-click handler here, and I'm also going to use a use effect here so that if it updates, I would see it. So use effect. So if the state changes, it should just log the state for me to see like it has the correct values. So here I'm first of all going to test the add item. First of all, going to test the add item. Let me paste that here. It's a function and it is expecting a key, product, and a count. So for example, if I say a key, now it knows the key that I should pass. So if I pass something else, it's going to give you an error. So first of all, I want to test for cat. Product, I will just add one for my mock. So it's supposed to be products. Let me import that from mocks. And then I'm not going to add a count. Right, so let's say you should add this product, and because I added a logic that if there is no count added, it should just add one product, then it should be able to add it. So if I save this, and I use my add to cart button to check, and I can use any of these because they're all using the same button. And if I click on add to cart, I have a lot of add to carts buttons here, so it's just going to print that number of times. But let's not worry about all these. We can just look at any one of them, and we could see that all the other items are empty, but the cart is 1, which means it is added that WD 4 terabyte gaming drive. It's added that to cart, which is very cool. So now if we try and test remove from cart, so instead of add to cart, I'm going to copy this and remove item, and then I do product ID, click on save, let's go back here, print multiple times again, but we know it's only one items in cart example. So let's click on this again, and now all the items are going back to 0, so it's removed the item. Alright, so I want to test the add to cart with a count. So I want to test the add to cart with a count, so I will comment this out, comment this back, and initially I want to put a count of, let's say, 5. Save this, let's go back, it's refreshed, click on add to cart. Our cart item is increased to 1 item, but if we check the count here, the count is 5. Initially here the count was 1, here the count is 5, which means it is working correctly. Let's add a different product, which is one to wishlist. We won't pass a count because wishlist wouldn't actually need a count. It's going to be 1 item added to wishlist, and you can remove that. So I will save this and test that as well. It's refreshed, wishlist is 0 from the start. If I click on this again, so now our cart is 1, our wishlist is also 1, as you can see here. If we try to test for remove, and this is supposed to be wishlist, it's refreshed. I'm going to click on this again, our wishlist is now 0, it's only the cart. Add and remove for wishlist is also working, and it is working for checkout as well, I am sure. So let's also check the increase and decrease count. So if we go back and say increase count, we need to pass for cart, and we need a product ID. So we know that the first product with an index 0 is in cart, and it has a count of 5. If I show that to you again, so we added, it has a count of 5, so we want to increase the count. So increase count, and let's go back and test this. You can see the count is 5, but we click on the button again, nothing happened. Clear this again. Alright, so type error cannot read properties of undefined within count for increase count. So cannot read properties undefined within count. Okay, so let's check why it cannot read the property count. We go back to our app context, increase count, items, and then index, and then we say if index, so here is, we say if index is not equal to -1, that's where you should do this. So this is what we need to check, and then we can increase items index.count. So let's check this again. Alright, so when we refresh, it's going to clear the state, so we need to add an item before we can increase the count. So we need to add an item before we can increase the count, so let's do that again. I'm going to do a count of 3. Wait for this to refresh, and we click on this, adds an item with a count of 3. Now let's increase the item. Save this, go back and check it again. It is still 3. When we click on this, we expect it to go to 4. Let's check the count, and there you go, it's gone to 4. And if we click on this again and check again, it's gone to 5. So we are going to be using a plus and minus for the quantity component to do this. And whilst we are here, let's also test for the decrease count quickly. So decrease count for the cut, let's save it. I think we are doing the same mistake here. Instead of equal to, we need to say not equal to. Let's check the count. Count is 5. Let me click on this, go and check the count now. Count is now 4. If I click on this again just to test, it's now 3. So our functions are working. So we can use it in different parts of our applications to add items to our state and remove items from our states without any issues, because we know it's working. One other function we would add shortly is to check if an item is added to cart or wish list or whatever. If I show you from here, go to our products. So for example, here this button is changed to remove from cart. So if I click here, it knows that it's been added to cart, so we don't see the add to cart button again. It now changes to remove from cart, because there is a check to see if this product has been added to cart. When I click on it, it is going to remove from cart. Alright, so we are going to use a boolean function to check if an item is added to cart or not, so that we can do the opposite. So if I go here and I go to app context, as I am here, there is one more function I have to add it, and it's going to be a boolean function. So I'm going to create that constant, and I'm going to say is added. What it is going to take is key, because it will check for all the other state items. Item key and product ID, which is a string, and this is going to be boolean, as I said. And here what I am going to return is state key. I check if some item from any of our state properties. So pass a callback function, check if item ID is equal to product ID. This is supposed to be returned. Right, so if there is an item which exists based on the key we pass, it is going to return true. If not, it is going to return false. So based on this, we can use it to switch between our buttons. So for example, the wish list, we can switch between the filled hat and then the outline hat, right, for removing and adding items to wish list. And same for the add to cart. We can switch from remove from cart and add to cart. So we would put this here. We need to make sure we add a signature to our context as well. So I'm going to control click on this, and I need to add a signature here. It's added, key product ID, which returns a boolean. So I can now close this and the error should go away from here. I can now save this. So now that we have our state in place, we are going to add our cart and wishlist component as well as our checkout component and now do the implementation. So let's create our wishlist and cart component and try and add items to cart and wishlist.